Is it very early?
I'm not too early. I'm in Texas, so it's like 10-ish.
It's an hour difference. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not bad.
Okay,
Great.
well, thank you for joining me. If you're okay, you'll just get started.
Perfect.
Perfect. Um, well, I guess first I just wanted to ask, how did you initially first hear about the organization Theater Without Borders, and kind of what was your first impression of it?
Yeah, so I first got involved and heard about it was from Roberta Levitov. So I'm a theater director myself, a theater maker from the Netherlands, but I'm based in New York City. And at the time, I was also the director of performing arts, a part-time cultural attaché for the Netherlands Embassy, for the Dutch Embassy here in the US. But because the cultural department is based at the consulate, not at the embassy in DC, but at the consulate in New York, I worked here in New York, and that's how Roberta and I got connected. Um, I saw, I'm not quite sure anymore exactly, but I saw something about Theater Without Borders through somewhere. And then Roberta came to New York for a visit for something, and we said, hey, let's have a coffee. And she had heard of me because I've supported stuff like as an embassy, you support international projects and exchanges. And so that's really where it all started. So that I think this was 2000, 2011 or something around there. So yeah, so we had coffee and we just both share a passion for international exchange, for international relationships in the arts, and so that's kind of like how it evolved from there. And then Roberta asked me, "Would you want to become a member? Could you become one of the core members? Because you have so many networks and so that's kind of like how it started."
And then I suppose I could ask, what personal value do you yourself see in an international theater program or mission?
Oof, that's a big question. Um, I mean, gosh, where do I don't see the value? I don't know. I mean, I made my entire career out of international exchange within the arts. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a bit of a boring thing because everybody says the same thing probably, but we all know that the arts are, the healing factor of society, are where society bonds, are where relationships are really cherished and celebrated. Also, the differences in relationships, and particularly in the times we live in right now with the polarization, the nationalization of things. I think the arts are even more valuable than ever. And so that's where I see a huge important role for the arts. And it's not only because I will say, again, working a lot internationally myself, I run a big organization in Africa, and I literally have directed all over the world. Um, I do think what I learned over the years is that where we initially always thought the borders are between countries, so to speak, I think I felt more and more that borders are between people in cities, inside countries itself. So I now kind of like say we probably as arts lovers have more in common with other arts lovers around the world than we have with our neighbors. So that might be like a Trump supporter or something like that, like so these borders where we looked at, and particularly Theater Without Borders also, where we looked for in the beginning and cultural diplomacy and international diplomacy, where we always looked at that to be between countries. I think the value has become greater and greater inside countries itself, in societies itself, that need to learn how to rediscover each other and speak to each other. So, yeah, so that's kind of like my answer, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. Um, Out of all the work and collaboration you've done for or with Theater Without Borders, is there any specific projects or moments that really stand out to you?
Yeah. Now the thing, I mean, I'm sure you're aware that Theater Without Borders, of course, is a very
Yeah.
grassroots kind of organization. I mean, we only not even that many years have this thing on Facebook and on like on the social medias and stuff like that. So I think that's partly its challenge and that's also its strength, that it is that loose, which means that many projects that have been done, I haven't even been part of because, again, also because of my own job and my own work, so many times there's been gatherings here that I was out of the country or somewhere else or something like that. But to mention, like, there's three specific that I feel like I really remember quite well. And this shows a little bit also the strength of Theater Without Borders. One is I remember very clearly with the Arab Spring happening in North Africa and particularly in Egypt at the time. And the artistic director of the opera was being threatened by the regime, like to be um, imprisoned. And I remember this was when I was still at the embassy, and I remember an email going around like we need to say something, or the international arts community needs to say something and stand up and blah blah blah, do something. And this was where I, for the first time, I really saw like how well the network works because we have so many people from around the world in that network. And I don't know if it was Roberto or somebody else, but an email was sent, and within like 24 hours, there was from all sides of the world, like things were being mentioned about this. And I think they laid, well, not the regime laid off, but I think he got out or something like that. But there was a support system, and something really happened very quickly. So I think that was something remarkable and quite showing a strength of a network like that. The other two projects have been more really gatherings that we organized. And one was during the Performing Arts Month, we call it the Madness here in New York in January, when there is like APAP and ISPA and the conferences and festivals and stuff like that. And usually quite a lot of Theater Without Borders members are here, like Roberta almost always comes to New York in January. And we had a gathering. Um, which then became the Climate Lens. It became also a Facebook group, and it was with some like academics from NYU. And we just had a simple, small gathering. It was like 20, 30 people of us in a room during this whole time. And when there were so many other things happening around us artistically. And we just started this climate lens, really looking at how the arts and climate and all of those things can. And this was really early on. This was before it became a big thing to talk about climate. And again, I think it's because it's a network of people that come from so many different places that these kind of conversations happen early on and are spreading because everybody has their own networks. So that was another gathering that really I remember really well. And the last one is more a little bit more closer to my heart, partly because I work so much in Africa, is that there's another organization called what is it called now? Nah. It's based in Brussels and Paris. I can't remember now but they have mobility guides. I can't find. I totally have a brain fart. But they do mobility guides, and they based in Europe and also funded by countries in Europe. Obviously, they had a mobility guide Europe, and they had Asia and Australia and stuff like that. And then they did one for North America and for Africa. And again, this was a different year, but again, during the crazy month here in January in New York, we worked together. We were kind of like the in-between person between that organization, On the Move, that's it. On the Move, it's called. Between On the Move and the City University of New York Theater Center, Siegel Theater Center. We brokered that kind of like position, and we had this big launch of this mobility guide in New York. And again, because it was during a time when the whole world kind of comes to New York, to watch things and see things. It again was, yeah, it was a great event to boom, launch these two guides, and immediately people all around were aware of it. So those are three examples that I remember.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I suppose I also wanted to ask, based on your past international experience and experience with other international or cross-border organizations within theater, how do you view Theater Without Borders as differing or being unique from all those other sort of international apparatuses?
Hmm, good question. Oof. I think it is the grassrootness of it. I think a lot of the other organizations, like an On the Move or IETM or ISPA, or they are either funded by governments, particularly in Europe, um, or really like they have an office space. They are an organization with people working for them, or in the case of like ISPA, it's a membership organization. So I mean they have an office too, but there it's not so much funded, but it's more like members pay into it, and that's how the organization exists. Um, with Theater Without Borders, none of that is happening. Nobody pays, nobody gets paid. It's completely, and so again, I think that's partly its strength, but it's also its challenge because that's why I know like Roberta, I mean, I met Roberta earlier this year in LA and she was like, I don't know if I can keep doing it. Like who is gonna take it over? And it's hard. It's really hard because like she looked at me all and I'm like, I do already 10 different jobs. I can't do this also, even though I have a heart and a passion for it, but it's really, really difficult for nothing to keep doing that. So I hope it somehow finds a home at a university. Feel like that's where it's like well situated in an educational system. Um, but I think that is the where it really differs from others. So it's very nimble. It doesn't have to. How do you say that? It doesn't need to show reports to other to funders or to members or to like we can kind of do what we want, so to speak, and that again makes it quite nice. And I think that makes it also very open to anybody being part of it. Because particularly when you get to like grant giving, but also memberships, there can always be politics playing a role a little bit. So, like the whole situation in the Middle East, we have a lot of Palestinian artists that are part of the of the group, so to speak, but also Israeli artists. And I think in certain other organizations, those things become political. And it becomes like, oh, but we can't really support that because our funders are going to be problematic about that, or whatever you want to say. But I think so in that sense, Theater Without Borders is really Theater Without Borders. And that's kind of like what I like about it.
Okay, thank you. Those are most of the questions I had today, or those are all the questions I had today. I did want to ask before we go, is there anything else you'd like to mention or touch upon?
Oh, wow, this is a quickie. Gosh. No, I don't know. It's like I said, I think really the biggest thing is how can this uh, become sustainable or how can this move on without it needing to hang so much on one or two people. Like I know that Roberta is really the one that has kept it alive for a long time, and some other people too. Um, so that would be like something, yeah, I don't know. That would be something to maybe think about is where could be the new home for Theater Without Borders, even though it shouldn't have a home in one no in one way. So yeah, so that's kind of where it's at.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed and appreciated being able to speak with you.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. It's really nice. Thank you for doing this also. I know that Roberta loves the fact that you guys are helping and because I do think it's a story worth telling.
Hmm.
I think that's what you guys are doing, right? You're kind of creating a
Yeah. a short like history, story, narrative, everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's important. It's very important because I think, we're all storytellers in the arts. And the problem so often, we have the same thing with my organization in Africa. The problem so often is that we can't tell our own story well enough for people to give funds or to sustain or stuff like that. So kudos, really nice. Thank you so much for your help in this.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And